Hello again, everyone. Getting to this a little bit later than I had anticipated, but better late than never. And let's go ahead and get to it. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit today about how technology affects our interpersonal communication and what some of the pros and cons of technology-based communication are for one-on-one interactions. If you remember from the chapter in the beginning, it talked about building positive relationships as being integral to our success. And if you're following along on the book, this was on page 109 to 110. And it talked about how positive relationships were a key factor in both successful business interactions as well as our personal lives. It's not really IQ that matters at the end of the day. It's really our emotional intelligence that determines whether or not we're going to be successful. You could be one of the smartest people in the world, and if you're not able to interact with other people successfully, you're not going to be successful. And it's really, goes back to that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'm sure everybody knows someone who is extroverted and they just seem to be able to connect with people and they have a huge social network. And have you ever stopped to think about, it seems like their life is easier. I know, me personally, I know people like that, and I experience a little bit of jealousy when I think about how easy it is for them to navigate through the obstacles in their life because they have this huge social network that they can rely upon to help solve their problems. They're not alone, in overcoming their obstacles. So, we need to try to learn to take a page out of their book, so to speak, and try to improve our own communication. And so let's talk about what approach, how are we going to do this? And how does technology fit into this equation? A little bit of background information. Celine Fitzgerald from the video talks about standard face-to-face communication and what the two main elements are in these interactions. And it's verbal and nonverbal communication that's taking place. And surprisingly enough, she says that 93% of communication is nonverbal. And that leaves a paltry 7% that is really left up to our word choice. We need to keep this in mind when we're looking at how technology-based communication serves these two elements of our communication. If we think about what type of communication people use more often than not in their day-to-day lives, it's really social media. Facebook, Twitter, so on and so forth, even text messages and email. And if we stop to think about what's fundamentally different with those types of communication, it's based on language only. It's only text. So we're losing that 93% of the information when we use these channels of communication. Body language is huge. I mean, you can see it when I'm talking to you now. I'm moving my hands. You can see my face. You can see my expressions, the tone of my voice. And I know personally it's something that I need to work on. Like Celine, I'm an introvert. Sometimes we can't help who we are. But, we can all work on our communication. So, body language is huge. And it can really fundamentally change a message without altering the words. if someone tells you word for word the same message in a face-to-face communication or in a written email, for instance, the way they present it in the body language, the nonverbal communication that's associated with that message can drastically alter the meaning that they're trying to get across to their audience. And unfortunately, it is absent from so many technology-based communication channels. Now, some communication channels do incorporate sort of, I guess, half nonverbal. Think about the phone, for instance. You can tell a lot about, I guess, the way someone is delivering a message based upon the tone of their voice, volume, how fast they're speaking, so on and so forth, but you can't see them. Now, there are exceptions to this. There are wonderful video conferencing services such as Skype and GoToMeeting where you get at least as much as you can of the message that's being delivered. But unfortunately, for so many other forms of technology-based communication, social media especially, it just gives the illusion of connection. You have 1,000 friends on Facebook. That's great. You may still be lonely. You may still be stressed. There really is no replacement for that face-to-face interaction. It enables people who are naturally reclusive to continue to do so and think that they are engaging with other people when they really aren't. And unfortunately for introverts like myself, we tend to gravitate towards these types of communication because it enables us to stay in our comfort zone. We don't have to interact one-on-one, face-to-face with people. And it's unfortunate. We don't get to build these important social skills that people used to have to build because they were forced to interact face-to-face with one another. Nowadays, you go into a waiting room and it's common that nobody talks to each other. It's just as easy to pull out your phone and be there on your phone thinking you're engaging on Facebook when there's people right in front of you. You miss an opportunity to practice real social skills with real people. And so, but unfortunately, we tend to go for these weak tie relationships, is what Celine called them, 9 minutes and 43 seconds. And young people are the biggest victims of this. And it's not all bad, right? I mean, we used to have to travel huge distances to engage in business transactions, to see families. There just wasn't any option prior to these technologies. If you needed to do a business deal with someone in China, you had to go to China on a boat. So the good thing about technology-based communication is it has really opened up the world. It's streamlined business, communication, and tasks can happen faster than ever before. But at the end of the day, it really is a double-edged sword. And what Celine says is the best thing we can do is use these technology-based communications to establish real-world relationships and then interact with people face-to-face in the real world. It can sort of be a way for us to initiate the connection, but it shouldn't stay in the technology world. It really needs to ultimately lead to face-to-face communications. She describes at 7 minutes and 49 seconds how she had given the social media thing a shot because, that's what everyone says nowadays is, oh, you don't have any friends? Get on social media, connect online. And she tried it, and surprise, surprise, she didn't feel any better. She was still lonely. She was still stressed out because it's not real. You're not fulfilling that human need to engage with someone in person through social media and remote communication. And she said in only a month of introducing herself to people on the bus, she was already networking with people that they knew. Her interactions became fruitful, whereas when they were technology-based, nothing really came of it. And it forced her to get out of her comfort zone, which is what introverts really need to do. She even spoke of some research at 9 minutes and 6 seconds about how extroversion really leads to happiness, even if it's forced. Because introverts really have to force themselves to engage with other people. So, yes, they are going to have to feel the discomfort of doing something that they're not naturally gifted at. However, it still leads to greater satisfaction and happiness. And I think we need to remember this when we choose to engage in technology-based communication over a face-to-face interaction. And we really need to start reverting back to some of these old school ways of interacting with people. Because ultimately it's going to lead to greater happiness and greater success and better relationships, both in our personal lives and in our business lives. So some good things to think about. I appreciate you guys listening to me, and I look forward to seeing your videos. And until next time, see you later.